Well, I think we're probably ready to go, Matt. Are you good?
Let's do it.
Hey, fantastic. Hey, so again, the Q&A button is there for you if you have any questions. We'll get to some questions at the end, but definitely we'll answer them by email if you have any questions. And you're going to get a copy of the ebook. It's got everything from the webinar plus more. And you're also going to get a link to the webinar replay. So don't worry too much about taking notes. The odd note, maybe have your keyboard ready, and because I got a couple of things that throughout that you might want to send me an email and request that we send some stuff back to you. Okay, so let's go. So during this webinar, you're going to discover how to take the 10 steps that'll 10x your financial freedom. But more importantly, how to beat the overwhelm and procrastination that stands in your way. And you're also going to, with Matt's help, his able help, you're going to see a live example of 10x financial freedom planning in action. Matt is absolutely the master of our planning software. So my name's Richard Vetter. I'm joined by, of course, my associate and son, Matthew Vetter. We are associate portfolio managers with WealthSmart Securities of Aligned Capital Partners. And we're also certified financial planners with our company, WealthSmart Inc. We will be your guides today on this journey. So can I ask you a question? Matt, how about you? Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Depends what it is, though.
Okay. Would you think I'm crazy if I told you that it's easier to 10x your financial freedom than to double it?
I would say yes.
Oops, sorry. I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Well, it turns out that it's not that crazy of an idea. And just to give us some context, you all know the game of chess. So let's talk about the legend behind the game of chess. And that is, as the story goes, when the game of chess was presented to a great king, the king offered the inventor any reward that he wanted because he thought this is an awesome game. The inventor asked that simply, okay, like you, absolutely, I wouldn't mind some pay for this. Tell you what, take a single grain of rice and put it on the first square and then double it on the second square and double it on the third square and so on and so forth. And then when you're done, like doubling the rice on all 32 squares, then like I'll be happy. That's all I need. So the king thought, okay, well, he could have asked for a bunch of gold and stuff, but he said, sure, okay. So he then ordered the treasurer to pay the agreed upon sum to the inventor. And a week later, the inventor went before the king and he asked why he had not received his reward. Well, the king was outraged. He said to the treasurer, he brought him before him, why did you disobey me? And he immediately demanded to know why the inventor had not been paid. And the treasurer explained, Your Majesty, we cannot pay the sum. By the time you got even halfway through the chessboard, the amount of grain required was more than the entire kingdom possessed. So the king logically had the inventor executed. An object lesson in the perils of trying to outwit the king. 10xing your financial freedom will not be that dangerous, okay? But it does employ this principle of compound interest as one of them. It's all about the Kaizen principle of doing small improvements in a number of different ways, in this case, 10 different ways, in order to achieve an exponential result. Okay, so first step, start a real financial plan. And before we go ahead and start a real financial plan, let's take an inventory across Canada and see how many people actually have a written financial plan. And the truth is 2/3, in our estimation, have no written financial plan, okay? I think about 50% said, yeah, they have a plan, but it's in, a third of them said it's in my head. Well, that's not a plan. That's not a written financial plan. So we figure about 2/3 of Canadians have no written financial plan. And the Financial Planning Standards Council of Canada did a study, I think back in 2013, on the value of financial planning. And they asked Canadians who had plans and Canadians who didn't have plans, well, what does this look like when you have a plan? Because before we say, okay, you got to have a plan, well, why, right? So they asked Canadians why it's of value. And they said, we're talking about the planners here, that, well, we feel on track with our financial affairs. So let me ask you, how would you feel if you felt totally on track with your financial affairs. They felt on track to retire. Well, I don't like the word retirement because it means you stop doing stuff, but financial freedom. They felt on track to make sure that they had money working for them rather than working for their money. And they felt on track to save. Like, okay, I've got a goal, I can achieve it. I've got a plan. I know what plan to put in place to achieve my goal. And they could deal with the invariable bumps in life because they're going to happen. These critical financial events, as we call them. Planners are confident in dealing with them. And planners can not only look for tomorrow, but they can live abundantly today. And saving for the future is critical, but they can live today. And planners have a stronger sense of well-being. Okay, they have higher emotional, financial, and overall contentment in their well-being. So how would it feel to have all those things? So let's take a little poll here. Who has a written financial plan?
I'm just watching the poll now.
Oh, good stuff. Who has a written financial plan that covers all 8 areas of your financial life? So everybody, please select the answer that applies, okay? And we'll give you a couple of minutes just to go through that. Fantastic. Great. Okay, is the poll done, Matt? I think so.
Give it, ending the poll in 5 seconds. And I'm ending the poll.
Good stuff.
So within this group,
cool.
67% of the people have a written financial plan.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. Okay, that is awesome. So the financial plan, what can that look like? What should it look like? Having a financial plan is great. And some people will say, hey, it's all on a one page. And actually that simplicity alone can really, really help you move forward. But I would really take it a few steps forward and say that a complete comprehensive financial plan covering all the areas really needs to cover a bunch of different bases. And I'm going to work kind of from the back going forward. A financial plan should have accounted for what ifs. You know, what if the markets take a dip in my retirement? What if there's an untimely illness, injury, or death? What if there's higher than expected educational expenses? So we need to account for those what ifs that happen and make sure that we're still going to be okay. We need to make one of those is life insurance. Okay, making sure that if we don't have enough cash on hand, we need to insure our earnings. We need to have some disability insurance and critical illness insurance and stuff, and have our wills in place and such. We need to know if our available investments will be okay and what that will look like if we execute the given steps of the plan that we need to. Okay. We need to know that all our investments are in the right places, that we've got the right kind of asset allocation. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. A lot of people have the express intent of dying broke. That's not a financial plan, sorry. Okay. Because just the very act of trying to spend all your money before you die, if you happen not to die when you thought you would, but much later, especially in this age of increasing longevity, that's a big risk. So you don't want to die broke. You want to leave some kind of a legacy behind, but also as a safeguard in case you need that money. You need to have a cash reserve on hand to deal with the emergencies. You need to know that those big goals that you want to do today or in the next couple of years are fully funded. A European family vacation in this case. You need to know that education, post-secondary education for children and for grandchildren can be within your reach. And for retirement, having financial freedom to continue to spend without going to work. You need to know actually what to do. And that big one, that benchmark of how am I doing overall, you need to know. And you need to know what your estate is looking like, what kind of taxes might be down the road that your estate might be facing and how to plan for them, what your lifetime cash flow looks like. Do you have enough to be able to spend for all those years? Because according to all the estimations, we're going to live on average longer than we're planning. Okay, that's just where science is going. And we need to have an action plan. This plant can't just sit on the shelf and collect dust. We have to have a regularly updated action plan as far as what are the steps we can take right now to take us to where we want to go, and an overall dashboard of how we're doing. Okay, are we fully funded for all the goals that matter to us? And understanding clearly in this little bar on the bottom what the benefits of all that planning are. There's your financial plan. Okay, and we're going to get you a sample of one of those later on as part of our presentation. So the second step is, it's not really a step, it's kind of a state, is to begin now with what you have. Take an inventory of everything you've got, all your strengths, all your weaknesses, your financial wealth. Get ready for the journey, because it makes no sense trying to get to your destination if you don't know where you are, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Doesn't that spell out our travels together?
Yes.
Especially my train station map reading skills.
One of
right?
us is not very good at getting us to destinations.
And geography was my major in university. Okay. But fortunately, I had my guides with me, because Matt and Dan definitely had some skills in reading train station maps. Okay. But we needed to know where we were and where we were going on that map. It's the same thing with our financial plans. And the way we like to look at it is through a tool that we call the wealth triangle. It allows us to prioritize, the things that we need to place focus on first, and then what comes next. And in this model, it's all about the protect stage. Okay, starting to putting down a layer of having a will in place, having powers of attorney, representation agreements, healthcare directives, having life insurance in place, disability insurance, a solid base of savings to absorb any kind of financial emergencies. It's just like, for those of you that live in Richmond, on the eastern side of Richmond is all bog. And every home that's built there now has an engineered slab. It is a solid, contiguous, multiply rebarred layer of concrete that, if underneath shifts, the whole house doesn't fall apart. It's shifting with the bog, but it's staying in one piece. That's the power of a solid foundation. And the next step is building. Matt, give me an example of what we talk about there.
Well, and it's important when we're creating a financial plan to, number one, identify your goals and how much you need, but we also need to align the vehicles to those goals in order to effectively pursue them.
Right. Like some examples would be.
For example, planning for a child's education, the Registered Education Savings Plan, the RESP, for flexibility and tax sheltered growth, the tax-free savings account. For retirement, of course, the usual one of the Registered Retirement Savings Plan.
Yeah. Right. So it's just like we have different rooms in our house. We've got a recreational room that does this, and the bedrooms that do that, and the living room that does this. We have an RRSP that saves for retirement, a TFSA for retirement and other goals, an RESP for education, RDSP for folks with special needs, things like that. So we need to match up our investments then with those different rooms. Okay. And within those different rooms, those different vehicles, those buckets, as part of our overall structure, we need to have assets that are appropriate. The right kind of investments need to fit those specific different goals that we have. And that's where we grow, using a strong investment methodology, not a helter-skelter, let's just throw money and hope it sticks, but a strong investment methodology matched up within those structures that we create. And then along the way, we need to enjoy it. That's the whole purpose of this, okay? Finding ways of taking that money as an income in our retirement, using it for education. We need to take those assets and deploy them to those goals that really matter. And at the end of the day, the traditional models say, well, on top of that, you can then go and start speculating in precious art and whatnots and things like NFTs. Come on, okay? I say no. Don't risk money unnecessarily, but we focus on the generosity that we can show to our families, to those that we care about, to the community that we love to live in. It's all about bringing joy to our own households and to the lives of others. Okay, it's all about giving. And now, what would happen, Matt, if we turned this thing on its head, turned it upside down?
I think it would be pretty wobbly.
Absolutely. We don't want to do that. And this is an example of the wrong kind of priorities. We call it the Bermuda Triangle because stuff just disappears here. Okay. And it begins with this concept that we call the shiny, like going after stuff that I want it. Just give me some of that. Right. Okay. And we all know that that doesn't end up well. And it's all part of that philosophy nowadays called YOLO. You only live once, and seize the day because we don't know what tomorrow brings. So let's just live it up and not have any responsibility at all. And you know what happens then? We're so busy going after the shiny and YOLOing it and stuff that we realize we've got to catch up. We didn't save any money. So we decide, well, let's make it quickly. Let's just speculate. And we get into crypto and penny stocks and all kinds of stuff like that, hoping to hit the jackpot, right? Okay. And then when we realize that's not working, we end up with the leftovers. Okay. So I've been spending all this money. I'm in massive debt and I got a couple of pennies to save. Let's start. And it's not enough. We're not getting there. And ultimately, at the end of the day, and this is tragic, your option is GoFundMe. GoFundMe is not a financial plan. GoFundMe has helped a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. It's helped a lot of people around the world who have been met with unexpected catastrophe that nobody could imagine. It's been a great tool to help others, but it's not a financial plan. Okay. So let's move past that, shall we? Okay. And third step, and this is where it begins. Pay yourself first. What do you got to say about that, Matt?
Richard, in all our work with our clients and people we meet, one trend is always persistent. When we don't plan our cash flow, what happens?
We got leftovers, right?
Yeah.
We don't have anything.
We spend it all.
Yeah.
So the concept of paying yourself first is an important one because it puts your financial future first. Before you have to pay other bills, you pay yourself first.
Hey, and you know, the guy that really painted a great picture of this was David Chilton in his book, The Wealthy Barber. And it was just a story about a guy in the barber shop and the barber giving him all this advice. And it was good down-home advice. And the bottom line was the first thing: pay yourself first. Between 10 and 15% of your income needs to be paid to you first before anybody else gets a piece of your paycheck, right? Okay, so we've got an easy button for that. And how does that work? And like you related that once to me in terms of that book, Willpower Doesn't Work.
Yeah, so willpower doesn't work. We have a finite amount of willpower, and it's something of fatigue and mental fatigue and the amount of decisions we have to make. If we're having to make the decisions of our investments, we're not going to be successful in it because that's another decision we have to make. So the easy button is to put this all on autopilot. It's to automate this. And how do we do that, Richard?
Dollar cost averaging. Nick Murray, one of the great speakers in the investment industry, called it God's gift to the investment world. And it is a simple process of putting a fixed dollar sum aside every single month, every single paycheck, or every week, or whatever you like. But what that does is when we're investing in a portfolio, say, of mutual funds, we automatically and systematically, if we're putting aside $500 a month, we buy $500 worth of units in a portfolio. And when the market is down, what happens there?
We buy more.
We buy more. And when the market's higher, we buy less. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? We're constantly seeking for this whole nirvana of buying low and selling high. Well, dollar cost averaging actually accomplishes what we know without it is impossible. We actually don't know how to buy low and sell high. But dollar cost averaging is a way of doing it in a small way over time. And the bottom line is it's the habit, right? It all comes down to the habits. So use the easy button in paying yourself first. The fourth step is to protect your most valuable assets first. And like this young couple in the looking at themselves in the mirror here, that's your most valuable assets. You got to take care of that. Okay, because that's valuable human capital. if you look at the today value of all the income you're going to generate over your time and all the value you're going to generate in your life and the life of others, it is priceless. You need to protect that. And there's all kinds of ways of doing that. We're not going to go into the details here, but what we do have for you, okay, and you want to take your keyboard right now, okay, and send me a quick email to rvetter@wealthsmart.ca. This is our ready for anything checklist. And it is a great tool to make sure that you're covering all your bases and making sure that you're totally ready for anything, okay? Covering your most important assets first. So send me a quick email to rvetter@wealthsmart.ca, request the checklist, and we'll send that off to you, okay? And Matt, can you put my email just in the chat box below? That'd be great. My email link is in the chat box below in just a moment, okay? And diversify properly, okay? Matt, jelly bellies, these jelly beans, are there any that you don't like?
I really don't like the popcorn ones.
Yep.
But in general, when I grab a handful, there's a bunch that I do like.
Absolutely. Same here. Like I don't mind the popcorn. I'm not crazy about the licorice, but we honestly, we like them all. We need to invest in them all. Like all of the available bona fide asset classes we need to invest in. But there's some that we don't want to. And like I'm going to delve very briefly into one example of this, and that is ESG investing. Okay, sort of sustainability investing, and you know, I have no issue with that. Actually, I kind of we're liking the idea more and more. And so if I decide that I don't want to invest in companies that aren't great to the environment, E, that treat their people kind of badly, S for social responsibility, and they don't really have great governance as far as the sustainability of their business, then I can de-emphasize or eliminate those kind of stocks. And just like I can take out the liquors or take out the popcorn and have all the rest, we can do the same with ESG. And there's various other different ways of selecting portfolios that are just right for us. But as far as the way that we diversify, we need to be in it all. Like we need to be in fixed income to the degree that we need to buffer down our risk, because fixed income tends to be lower risk. We need to be in all kinds of equities, real estate, different other types of investments, and we need to be geographically diversified across, you know, Canada, the US, international emerging markets. Matt, we've kind of traveled to different places and we've seen that, you know, the thing it tells you is that Canada is, we love our country. It's kind of small. Even though it's geographically big, we're only 4% of the world stock market capitalization, and we need to invest in the other markets. And there's all kinds of ways of doing that. But the way I look at it is when one investment zigs, okay, like that, the other one might zag. And you need to have negatively correlated assets, right? Does that ring well for you, Matt? Negatively correlated assets?
Yes, and I think you explained that perfectly. When one zigs, one zags.
Yeah, exactly. And like, take a look at the cable analogy. When you take a steel cable, you see a smooth, you know, relatively uniform cord. But when you take it apart, each strand looks like this. And that's what your portfolio needs to accomplish, is kind of a smoothing through massive diversification. Okay, so one example of this is Canada Pension Plan. Wow. That's a big fund. And when we bump into our, you know, some of our friends and neighbors and people we bump into, they tell us all about their cool stock picking stories and how they did well in this stock and that stock. They're probably not telling you about the ones that didn't do well, but that's another story. But if we want to take a look at how professionals actually invest for in a way that doesn't put their family's wealth at risk, take a look at something like the Canada Pension Plan. Or take a look at the Norwegian Sovereign Fund, for example. That's the world's biggest investor out there. They're invested in everything. In Canada Pension Plan here, we've got, gosh, in terms of safe assets like bonds, we've got about 23.1% in safe type investments like bonds. And we need to do that in order to be able to fulfill people's needs for income when markets are down. Okay. But the biggest pension plans in the world have most of their assets in equities. Looking at the BC pension plan, the BC municipal pension plan, for instance, 19% in bonds, 4% in mortgages. So it's about 23 and other short term, 25% in safe investments. These are investments that they need to have there that are stable, that can meet current income needs of pensioners. And we need to structure our portfolios in the same way, but according to your specific risk profile. It's not going to look like the CPP or like the BC pension plan. It's going to look like your plan. Sixth step is we need to avoid unnecessary investment risks, uncompensated risks. Matt, how do you put it?
Many people, when they think of investing, they're looking for trophy fish. So we're talking about the marlins and the what's another trophy? Other trophy fish.
Yeah, yeah.
But the concern really should be about how can I feed my family?
Absolutely. So you took that trip to Los Cabos with your friend's stag that time, and you caught the marlin.
I did.
Like,
I was
there
very
a lot of
lucky.
There weren't many people out there doing that.
Yep.
But listen, that guy on the shore casting the nets into the sea, was he generally coming back home to his family with something every day?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was feeding his family. Okay, that's a good comparison here. So avoid unnecessary investment risks. And hey, listen, betting on hot stocks or crypto or Lotto 649 or trips to the casino, that's not a financial plan. Okay, so avoid unnecessary risks. And because at the end of the day, you know, if you take a look here at the growth of wealth over time, we accomplish more by taking on extra risks that we're rewarded for. So if we would have put in 1927 $1 in US, and I'm using the US because we got long data there. Okay, we don't have as long data in Canada, but this allows me to go back to 1927. If we put $1 in US T-bills, we'd have $21 today. If we put $1 into the Standard & Poor 500, continually having it in the top 500 stocks in the US, we'd have 11,183. And if we put $1 into a collection of all the US stocks that are out of favor, in other words, when everybody thought, okay, that's not a very sweet stock, actually, we get compensated more for those. So that's called value investing. We'd have 24,462. And if we would have put $1 into even riskier areas, short-term risky, 140, we'd have 148,000 if we would have invested in US small stocks that the market doesn't like, i.e. value stocks. So I'm not saying we put everything into that top one, because that's going to be more volatility, but we need to incorporate many of these into our portfolio in ways that we get compensated for that risk. We don't get compensated for trying to pick the stocks in here, because nobody knows what the future of each stock is. Okay, that's very, very dangerous, but we get compensated for investing in those asset classes that contain these types of stocks and diversifying the tar out of it. Okay. Seventh lesson is stay in your seat, Matt. Okay.
Oh man, we don't. So we are sometimes sports goers, but imagine that we're at a game and it's a 0-0 and we're getting frustrated and we're getting bored, and you know what, we really need a beer and there's 5 minutes left. But then when we come back, or no, when we're getting our beer, we hear a roar of applause from the stadium and the game winning goal has been scored. How do you feel about missing that?
Well, I don't feel good, but here's the truth is I'm usually getting up to go get a beer or something else. If there's a snoozy part in the game, okay, if I'm not having a great experience in the game, forget this, I'm going to go get something to drink. Okay. Yeah. And that's when the action often happens, right?
And in the market, we don't know when these days are going to happen, but these days account for a large majority of the return that come in. So if we're not in place and we're constantly going in and out of the market, we won't be able to capture those dates.
Absolutely.
And that has a huge impact on the long-term rate of return that we will be achieving.
For sure. For sure. So we can't really trust those emotions, or we should really watch them. We should really be aware of those emotions that we're having. And this is a classical example here of when somebody decides to become an investor rather than a saver. All of us, they're really optimistic because, people have been having great results in this particular portfolio and they think they're going to as well. And they get really excited and things start going up and the experience is great. And it's like, hey, I feel really good about this investment. And then they reach this euphoric state here. But there's cracks that start appearing. And all of a sudden there's some setbacks and there might be some global event that's causing things to drop in a war or something like that. And then no, okay, it's okay, it's temporary. But then the fear starts kicking in. Things go down a little bit more and they get desperate and they panic and there's just outright despondent. They capitulate and they decide maybe the markets aren't for me, right? Well, and then at this point here, it could have been the point of maximum financial opportunity. They lost it. Okay, because they sold everything. They got in prior to or sometimes at the point of maximum financial risk, and they got out often at the point of maximum financial opportunity. This is the truth in the cycle about the markets. And Matt, you did a study for me years ago where you went to the Canadian Investor Fund database, Canadian Investment Funds Association database, and you found that sure enough, when markets are down, people are selling out of their stock funds. And when the markets are up, people are buying into, again, the reverse of what we should be doing. It's really quite tragic, isn't it? Because despite all of those emotions, and throughout all of these crises here, in 1970, if we would have put $1 into the global markets, we'd have $114 today. That's huge. If we would have just stayed in our seat and if we would have just stuck with it. Okay. Over all the decades, I remember all the Time magazine covers. In the 1970s, I was growing up, my parents had a subscription to Time magazine. I'd see all the covers and they'd have all of these negative events on them. That's going to influence us as investors. But take a look at this. During World War II, from September 1st, 1939 to September 30th, 1945, the US stock market enjoyed a 12.68% compound rate of return and more than doubled its value during those nasty years. So when we look at this slide, we have to make a fundamental decision. Do we trust free enterprise or not? Are we long-term investors? Or are we savers? Nothing wrong with either, but make a decision. Are we concerned about return on my money? Or are we concerned about return of my money? And maybe there's two buckets there. We need to have a bucket that is return of my money, because when the market is down, we need to have money to draw on so that we don't sell stocks when they're down. But we need to have a good portion of our money that is in there for long-term growth. Okay. It's all going to depend on your risk profile. Eighth step is avoid unnecessary fees and taxes. I love the illustration that you've given, Matt. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So your money is like a bar of soap, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more you handle it, the less of it you actually have.
Absolutely. That is a really good analogy. And there are so many different ways of handling our money. It's not just us, it's other people handling our money. I'm going to give you an example, okay? Matt, the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's 500, always contains the top 500 stocks at any given time. Is that different over time?
It changes.
It totally does. What happened when Tesla was introduced into the S&P 500?
Well, in order to be considered an S&P 500 index fund, you need to buy Tesla when they tell you to buy Tesla.
Yeah.
So, of course, everyone was forced to buy Tesla to be considered an S&P 500 stock.
Every
which
S&P
drove
500 index fund, right? Yeah.
Index fund, sorry.
Yeah.
Which drove the price of Tesla up.
Absolutely. And that happens twice a year, doesn't it?
Yeah. But on the other hand, imagine being that one stock that fell out of the S&P 500.
Yeah,
Well, suddenly everyone has to sell that stock.
you got it. Yeah. That's the reconstitution effect, and that can really negatively impact a portfolio. And that is an example of unnecessary, well, not unnecessary, it's necessary to be an S&P 500 fund, but an example of actions that create excessive friction in a portfolio. Matt, if I wanted to buy your car today, how much you want for it?
Probably 20,000.
Okay, I'll give you 18.
Too low.
Really?
No.
Okay, I'll go to 18 and a half.
Okay, I'll go to 19 and a half.
Nah, it's still a bit dear. Hey, can we just cut to the chase and can we agree on 19,000?
Fine.
Okay. I'm not ecstatic because I would have preferred 18. You're not ecstatic. You would have preferred 20, but we're both relatively satisfied at 19. We've each paid a price, a cost, a frictional cost of $1,000. The total bid-ask spread between the original bid and ask is $2,000. That happens in the stock market every day. So the more your portfolio is handled, okay, and stocks are traded and your turnover is higher and higher and higher, the more frictional costs. And that's going to detract from your portfolio. And guess what? That's not reflected in your management expense ratio. That's an extra cost that is borne that is not tangibly measured, but it's going to have an impact. Turnover. The more people, do things with your money in terms of researching like crazy and, having really, really high costs of all that, the more your management fee is going to go up. So the more you handle your money, the less you have. We got to be careful with that. Okay, don't pay unnecessary fees and taxes. Oh, by the way, every time you sell those stocks at a gain, outside of an RSP and a TFSA, you're going to pay tax on that, right? Plan for inflation because, man, stuff gets more expensive. Classic illustration here in 1916, we could have bought a quart of milk for 9 cents. And today, 9 cents gives you 7 tablespoons of milk. Okay. I love this example here because I don't remember these 2 years here, but I remember the Louis Riel stamp and the Diefenbaker stamp and 39 cent. That 39-cent stamp always, I see that etched in my memory. 2046 cents, 51 cents. It started getting so expensive they stopped putting the price on stamps. So now it's $1.07 for a 2022 postage stamp. To send a letter across Canada, it'll cost you $1.07 today. Life gets more expensive. And, we're afraid of the markets. We're afraid of inflation. And sometimes we think of, I can't stand this anymore. I'm just going to put everything in term deposits, fixed income. Well, Matt, fixed income warns us by its very name. It's fixed, okay? If you have a term deposit, it might give you an interest payout, and they'll give you your money back at the end of a year or the end of 5 years and so on and so forth. Same thing with a bond. But you're going to fall behind inflation, and we call that, it's a necessary part of your portfolio, but it can't be all of it. Because if it's all of it, it's just going broke safely, right? So let's take a look here at the truth behind all of the markets. And that is the growth of the Canadian dollar here, okay? In 1985 to 2020, we grew $1 to $32 in world equities. We grew $1 to $8 in short-term bonds, fixed income. We grew it to $4 in treasury bills, and inflation was, we grew it to, it was $2. But after taxes and stuff, your investments are falling behind inflation. We don't want to do that, okay? At the end of the day, you need professional advice. And don't take our word for it, but Delbar and Vanguard said it well. The Delbar summary of returns, December 31st, 2021, found that the average equity fund investor in the US had a 7.13% compound rate of return, while the S&P 500 had a 10.65% rate of return. That is a huge difference. And that's not all fees. That's investors misbehaving and sometimes investment advisors misbehaving. So we know that it's out there, okay? And We know we need the right kind of professional advice. Vanguard, in their Advisor Alpha study, put it really well. All kinds of different factors here. And you're going to get copies of this and also the ebook. So I'm not going to go through it. But at the end of the day, Vanguard found that the average client experience working with a qualified advisor was about 3% better than the average, according to their study. So professional advice works, the right kind of professional advice. So let me ask you a question here. So do you clearly know the degree to which you will achieve your financial goals? Let's put up that poll. Let's just answer that poll for us, folks. It'll take a few minutes. It'll take a few seconds to answer. Here we go. Thank you. Okay. Fantastic. 2 of 5. There. Good.
I have about 10 seconds left on the poll.
Good. One more. Okay.
All right. I'm ending the poll, and it comes to up to about a 50-50 split.
Fantastic. That's what I would have thought. Okay. So the reason I ask is we've come a long way in financial planning technology. WealthSmart's recently adopted an amazing new, we call it bionic planning software. Bionic meaning it's not like artificial intelligence that we see out there. It's an amazing tool that allows us to be better advisors to our clients. It gives us options that we can discuss with clients, and they can decide whether they want to adopt them or not. So Matt, can you take us into that live planning session that shows us exactly how that works?
I'm actually looking forward to this. So yes,
oh, yeah,
I will start.
Awesome.
Okay. Now we're going to do a live demonstration on how to 10x your wealth, or sorry, your financial freedom. So we're going to start with the first step, which is to start a financial plan. And one of the most important things about starting a financial plan is actually defining your goals. So let's go into this a little. This is Richard, would you like to introduce our couple first?
Oh, certainly. So let me just go back here. This is Bill and Susan Adams. And they are, let me just see here. They caught me off guard there. Okay, so Bill's 41. He works as an engineer, earns about $120,000 a year. Susan's 39. She makes $95,000 as the HR manager for a mid-sized manufacturing company. And they've got 2 kids, Bill Jr. and age 10 and Sally age 8. And we have, of course, changed the names to protect the innocent. Okay.
So with that, as I was saying, it's important to define our goals. So with this retirement goal, they both want to retire at 65, and they'd like, wrong button, and they'd like to be spending $7,200 monthly. And this is, of course, indexed. Now, another goal is they want to fund their children's education. And for 4 years, education, $6,000 a year. They also want to take a trip to Greece, and they also want to have a cash reserve. So what happens is, let's go to the second step, which is to start now with what you have. Based on this, we have their incomes here of 120 and 95. We have all their accounts here, all their account values here. We also have they're spending $4,000 a month on their lifestyle, but they also have their mortgage here, their mortgage and their primary residence. So starting now with what we have, here's an important thing. One of the fundamental things of starting now with what we have was to build and to protect your foundation. So we're going to just pop into the planning mode and start with this. So within this couple has $30,000 of credit card debt. And credit card debt is erosive. It will destroy the foundation of your financial plan and your financial future. So right now, currently, we're going to switch over to the retirement one because that's where we can see it the most, the impact of this. They currently have a net estate of negative $230,000, which is, let's start to try and work on that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to pay off that credit card debt because it's not good. Now, Susan also has a group RRSP, but she's not contributing it to it currently. And that's free money. If her employer is willing to contribute 6% of her salary, with her contributing 6%, that's free money for her. That's an easy decision that she should make. So what we're going to do now is we're going to maximize Susan's group employer RSP contribution and see what that does to their future. Now, the next step is to pay yourself first. They have several goals that they'd like to achieve, but what we're going to do is we're going to start allocating monthly savings, because this is a couple who has pretty good cash flow. The problem was there was more month left at the end of the money, and they didn't know where their cash flow was going. So of course, when we take that perspective, they're spending it all. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start $500 a month for Bill's RSP or for his TFSA, and $500 for Susan's TFSA. We're going to also start increasing savings to their RRSPs. So $1,200 for Bill and $500 for Susan. And the difference is Susan has that group RRSP. So she's limited in her RRSP contribution room. Now, we're also going to start saving to a non-registered account because they have a little bit more cash flow that they could work with. And finally, their education goal. They're going to start saving $155 monthly for 8 years to fund their children's education. Now, this doesn't account for all the CESG and stuff, but this is just an example, or this doesn't factor in optimizing the grants and stuff, but this is just an example. Now, the next step really, Richard, something unfortunate happened with this scenario. And Susan and Bill were so worried about the markets, and they were left on their own to do this on their own. And what happened is they sold to cash. They sold everything to cash, and they've been sitting in cash, waiting for the perfect market and perfect time to come through. And unfortunately, without guidance, that's our default behavior.
Yeah, and this happens a lot, where we make a rash decision, we realize it's a wrong decision, the markets catch up and they've surpassed us, and then we wait for the next dip. And we're continually waiting for the next dip because, sometimes we may get the decision right to get into the market at the right time. But then if we're trying to time it, we don't make the right decision to get out at the right time, or just to reverse. You got to get two decisions right. Mm-hmm.
So by working with us, they've come up with a asset allocation that they're comfortable with and that they can sleep soundly with at night. So we're implementing this, and this one will have a major impact on the growth of their wealth.
That's huge.
So you can see now that their retirement is fully funded.
Yeah.
Right. Now, as part of this, they also had a non-registered account, right? And the TFSA is a powerful investment in vehicle. And what we're recommending is also to maximize the TFSA every year and to transfer as much as they're non-registered into that TFSA as possible within the limits. But the important thing of this is they're really taking care of that tax sheltered growth environment.
Because so basically we had some carry forward that we weren't using in the past from the tax-free savings account, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly. And of course, they're also going to be, within the scenario, we're building up quite a bit of cash flow ability in the future. So we're also going to be contributing to our TFSAs in the future during retirement, just because of the flexibility it offers. Now, we're going to be managing the costs. And here's the unfortunate thing. The average cost of investment advice is about 2.23%. Which is huge.
That's sometimes on the low side. I've seen higher figures than that.
That is true. Yeah, but we're going to be implementing a more manageable investment expense ratio, which is about closer to 1.4%.
Okay.
And we'll see what happens with the long term of this. So you can see the impact of this on their legacy as we've been going through this scenario. We've started off at a negative legacy. Now we're at a positive legacy of $4.42 million. I think we're doing pretty good. Now, there are these what if scenarios that also come up, and I will just get to those. So for the cash reserve, because we also believe that it's important to have a cash reserve in order to we would recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses in case something happens, so that you're not having to force to sell your house or sell assets at an inappropriate time. So with this, we're kind of recommending a home equity line of credit type situation. And of course, their trip to Greece, we need to have fun in life, and they have available funds. So we're just going to allocate those funds towards their trip to Greece. Now, I was talking about those what if scenarios, and those are the scary ones. So let's just load for a second. There's a lot going on here.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, if Bill was to pass away at the age of 43, what impact would that have on their family's financial future? Well, it's not looking so good in terms of retirement. Not looking so good in terms their education is still funded. But in overall sense, their financial well-being will not be as good.
Yeah.
So if that was to happen, what we would recommend would an appropriate amount of life insurance that is an appropriate number in a few ways in terms of value, but also in terms of what they can afford, and implementing that and see what that has to do with their situation. So of course, that completely saves everything.
Yeah.
And they won't be forced to compromise on their lifestyle. They won't be forced to compromise and move when they're already going through such a difficult time.
Well, the nice thing about this, Matt, I just want to emphasize, is that taking this approach, I think, is probably way better than all the traditional ways that I've seen of calculating life insurance needs. So this cash flow based approach is phenomenal. So thanks for that.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's another what if scenario, reacting to the market. And how we modeled this was we were being conservative, and we said, okay, maybe a 2.5% reduction in the rate of return. And that's a very conservative number when we're constantly reacting to the market. But let's see what happens when we look at the overall value of their estate in the long run. So currently, with everything implemented, we have a value of an estate of 4.35 million. Now, if we're reacting to the market, their estate is only 1.58 million. I think those numbers speak for themselves. What the impact of
misbehaving carries a heavy price.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I guess we're all wondering now, Matt, did we actually 10x this scenario? So let's go into that. Okay. So we're going to start with the retirement. Did we 10x our retirement figures? So they are retiring at 2045. Now, given current trends and what we're doing currently, at 2045, we have liquid investments of $286,000. And you could see with that, as we go on in the current state, we will eventually be in the negative. With our recommendations at 2045, now remember this number, 286, the current number, where is it? Sorry, 2.78. We have close to 10x our results. I think this is more impactful when we look at the legacy impact of this. So this is their net worth chart. If we were to continue as we were continuing without implementing anything, in 2072, they would have a negative estate value of $226,000 or $229,000.
They would have accomplished their objective of dying broke.
Yes.
Right.
With these recommendations and working with a professional advisor, their estate value would be about $4.41 million.
Far better.
Yeah. I think we've 10x that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I thank you for all participating in our live planning demo. We love doing this.
Wow.
Now I'm going to turn it back to Richard.
Matt, thank you. You know, it reminds me of those things on YouTube. Will it blend? Whereas this is, will we achieve a 10x result? So I'm appreciative of that. So I'm just going to share my screen again here and go back to screen 2 and share there. And fantastic. So folks, our financial freedom builder is our own unique process that really delivers a financial freedom to pursue the goals that matter to you. And this was one part of it, what Matt just illustrated here. We did it very quickly. We don't normally work that fast. But it walks us through the three big level stages of financial planning. And that is focus, determining your focus, where you want to go. What are the goals that matter to you? What keeps you awake at night? How can we help that go away? And what opportunities excite you? And then getting clarity on where you are now through interactive financial planning like this, answering all of the important questions and progress, because that plan can't stay on the shelf. How do we get there? What do I need to do today? And don't deluge me with a gazillion different things all at once. What can we do step by step to make progress? Taking a no stone unturned approach to finding every possible avenue to help you get ahead, and recognizing that the plan never ends. Okay, so that's how the Financial Freedom Builder works. And the key things that we have to ask is how would it feel to you if you had clarity and direction toward the goals that matter, and peace of mind through all the ups and downs? And how much more confidence could you have to have support along the way? Okay, so here's how you can get started. And we might run a couple of minutes over if that's okay with you, just a couple of minutes. Schedule a quick chat. Okay, Matt's going to throw a link to our quick chat down in the chat box. Okay, and with that, when you click on that link, you're going to be able to schedule a quick chat with us either by Zoom or by phone, where we can just follow up on what we've been talking about today and arrange for, discuss the free gifts that we're going to be giving you, and also see if we can help you get started on your own financial freedom blueprint we're going to talk about in a moment. So schedule a quick chat, and you can do that right now. Our schedule next week is gone, but the week after things are opening up, so you can find a convenient time there. And that's what I love about Zoom and about phone, is you don't have to drive anywhere. We can just have this over here. The Zoom would be best, actually, because we can share a lot of stuff over the screen. Subscribe to Wealth Smarts, which is our financial confidence builder. We have, speaking of that trip to Europe in 2018, Matt, with you and Dan and I, we launched Wealth Smarts on a train going north through Europe. And we pressed send because they had Wi-Fi on board. That was really cool. We've been doing that straight up every single Friday for the past 4 years. So Wealth Smarts. Follow our podcast. We have a ton of fun on it. So you want to follow our podcast. We'll send you all these links for all of these resources here. And I want to talk briefly about our free gifts. And the first one is our financial freedom blueprint that you're going to get. And over that quick chat that you schedule, will help you really get started on your financial freedom journey. And then we'll give you a copy of that financial freedom blueprint back to you, just for you can pin it on your fridge. You can do whatever you want with it, but it'll get you started. Okay. And don't get me wrong here. We are always open for business. We're always looking to help more people, but it's got to be something that you want. Okay, so financial freedom blueprint, we're going to provide that without any obligation whatsoever. If you want to have a conversation further after that, that's okay too, but don't feel obligated. You're also going to get the PDF and also the live version of 10 Steps to 10X Your Financial Freedom ebook. Everything you learned today plus more, and all the links that can help you with that. And you're also going to get a free sample financial plan. Actually, Matt, I think we're going to send the one that you just did, right? We'll send a sample of that and what that looks like. Because seeing as most people have never seen a comprehensive financial plan, we're going to give you a sample to that. And Matt, I was thinking about this during today, and I'd like to do this. If for everybody that books their quick chat now, we'll also give you the opportunity to do one of these, financial plans that we showed live with you at another scheduled time. Okay. Normally we don't do that, but I'd like to do that today. I feel good about this. And it's going to be like completely free and no obligation. We're going to walk you through a basic financial planning exercise. We can't go into the depths that we would go through with our own clients, but we can get darn close, okay? Should take maybe 30 minutes, something like that. And we can walk you through that process. And the outcome is going to be, you're going to get a one-page goal progress sheet that we're going to send back to you. And if the odd person decides that they want to explore working with us, we're going to help you extend that into a further planning relationship. But I want to offer that out there. Okay. Is there anything I forgot to add there, Matt?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Hey, do we have any questions right now?
No, we do not.
Oh, we got a very enlightened group. We hope this has been a worthwhile experience for you. Matt, anything further that you had to add?
No, I think we're running up on the hour now.
Well, fantastic. Actually, we're a couple of minutes late. I appreciate your patience, folks. And thank you for being here. This has been great. We're going to have a replay of this, okay, in case you want to go over it again. And we're also going to get all of these free gifts out to you. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us. But in the meantime, we hope we're one day shy of the weekend. We hope you have a fabulous weekend. And we look forward to speaking soon. Okay. Thanks. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.